Have you ever eaten what seemed like a healthy, low-fat yogurt, only to find your blood sugar still skyrocketed? Sound familiar? Today, we're not going to talk about complicated diets or confusing terminology. Instead, we're going to keep it simple, just like a casual chat with a neighbor, and break down 5 food groups you might want to limit if you have type 2 diabetes. And I promise you'll look at grocery store shelves in a whole new light after our conversation. Let's imagine our body for a moment as a furnace. Food is the fuel. Some types of fuel, like dry kindling, catch fire instantly, give off a burst of intense heat, and burn up quickly. These are your simple carbohydrates. Others, like dense oak logs, smolder slowly and steadily, providing consistent warmth. These are your complex carbohydrates. Now with diabetes, our furnace operates a bit differently. It really dislikes those sudden surges of heat. Our task is to learn how to feed it the right kind of logs. So, let's begin with our first item. This is arguably the sneakiest and most prevalent adversary to good health and well-being for those with diabetes. We're talking about sugary drinks. What exactly am I referring to? This includes fizzy sodas in every color of the rainbow, those attractive juice boxes and cartons, and the bottled iced teas that are so tempting on a hot day. You might think, what's the harm in just one glass? It's just liquid, after all. But this is precisely where the main pitfall lies. Let's conduct a simple thought experiment. Imagine pouring yourself a glass of plain water. Now take a sugar bowl and add 1 teaspoon of sugar to that glass. Then a second, a third, a fourth, a fifth, and occasionally even a 6th. Stir it in. Would you actually drink water that sweet? Probably not. Yet this is precisely how much sugar is contained in an average glass of cola, lemonade, or even what seems like healthy packaged apple juice. The only difference is that artificial colors and flavors are added, masking that intense sweetness. Our bodies are wired to absorb sugar from liquids almost instantly. It doesn't require digestion. It's like splashing gasoline onto a bonfire. You get a sudden, powerful flare-up. Similarly, sugar from a drink immediately enters the bloodstream, causing a sharp spike in glucose. For our pancreas, which is already working under strain, this is a real blow. But wait a minute, you might say. Juice is made from fruit, and fruit means vitamins. And that's a perfectly valid point. However, there's one crucial nuance. When we eat a whole orange, we get not only the juice but also the fiber. In other words, the fruit's own pulp and structural components. This fiber acts like a sponge, slowing down the absorption of sugar. But when an orange is processed into juice at a factory, all that beneficial fiber, that sponge, is simply discarded. What's left, essentially, is sweet water with vitamins. Yes, vitamins are good, but they don't negate the impact on your blood sugar levels. So, the first and simplest rule is, if you're thirsty, reach for plain water. If you crave variety, add a slice of lemon, cucumber, a few berries, or a sprig of mint to your water. It's both delicious and completely safe. All right, moving on to the second point on our list. Here, we'll talk about foods that form the cornerstone of many of our diets. These are things we eat almost every day. Fluffy white bread, light white rice, and creamy mashed potatoes. At first glance, what could be wrong with them? They're not candy, not cake. They're hearty, familiar foods. However, for our bodies, especially with diabetes, these products behave almost exactly like a spoonful of sugar. Let's revisit our furnace analogy. If sugary drinks are like gasoline, igniting instantly, then white bread, rice, and potatoes are like gunpowder. They also burn very, very quickly, causing a sharp and powerful spike in heat. That is, blood sugar. Why does this happen? It all comes down to processing. Let's take a wheat grain, for example. It has a tough outer layer, the bran. This layer is rich in fiber and acts as a natural brake, slowing down carbohydrate absorption. But to get pristine, high-grade, white flour, all these beneficial layers are removed. What remains is pure starch, which our body converts into glucose at an incredible speed. There's no brake left. It's the same story with rice. White rice is a polished grain, stripped of its beneficial outer layer. Brown or unpolished rice, however, retains this layer, which is why it's absorbed much more slowly. Potatoes are even more interesting. In mashed form, they become champions at raising blood sugar levels quickly. When we boil and mash potatoes, we break down their cellular structure, making the starch highly available to our bodies. Potatoes baked in their skins are much safer in this regard. This doesn't mean you need to give up these foods forever. Not at all. But it's crucial to understand their nature, and, whenever possible, replace them with slower digesting alternatives. Instead of white bread, choose a slice of whole grain or rye bread. Instead of white rice, opt for brown rice, buckwheat, or barley. And instead of mashed potatoes, have a couple of potatoes baked in their skins. These simple substitutions can help keep your blood sugar in check without feeling like you're on a strict diet. And now we come to the most interesting and perhaps the most deceptive item on our list. Number 3, those special products specifically labeled for diabetics. Yes, you heard that right. Those very shelves in supermarkets that often feel like a lifeline. Waffles, cookies, candies, jams, all boasting enticing labels like sugar-free, made with fructose, or diabetic-friendly. It seems like the perfect solution. You get to satisfy your sweet cravings without any perceived harm. But unfortunately, in most cases, this is just a clever marketing ploy. So what's the catch? More often than not, regular sugar, sucrose, in these products is simply replaced with fructose or other sugar alcohols like sorbitol or xylitol. For a long time, fructose was believed to be an excellent alternative because its metabolism requires very little insulin. Sounds ideal, doesn't it? However, recent research has revealed the flip side of the coin. Firstly, our bodies metabolize fructose in a vastly different way than glucose. It goes directly to the liver, and if too much fructose is consumed, the liver, unsure of what to do with it, begins converting it into fat. This can lead to fatty liver disease, a condition that only exacerbates diabetes. Secondly, let's talk about calories. A fructose-sweetened waffle contains roughly the same number of calories as a regular one, and the refined flour it's made from still rapidly converts into glucose in your bloodstream. So, by changing just one component, manufacturers essentially leave all the other problems unaddressed. We consume these diabetic products, thinking they're safe, and often end up eating even more than we would a regular sweet. The result? Your blood sugar still rises, and your liver faces an increased burden. So, remember this simple rule. The diabetic-friendly aisle is not a free pass. More often than not, it's essentially the same fast food, just in different packaging. If you're truly craving something sweet, it's far more honest and safer to have a small piece of high-quality dark chocolate or a single sugar-free fruit chew. rather than deceiving yourself with an entire packet of diabetic cookies. Always read the ingredient list carefully, and don't be swayed by prominent claims on the front of the packaging. Now let's talk about the fourth food group that often sparks debate: very sweet fruits, and especially dried fruits. You might ask, what? We've been told our whole lives to eat fruit for vitamins and health, and that's absolutely true. Fruits are an indispensable part of a healthy diet, but as with everything, moderation and understanding are key, especially when managing diabetes. Let's visualize all fruits and berries on a scale. At one end we have, for instance, grapefruit, lemon, tart apples, and cranberries. These contain relatively little sugar but plenty of fiber. They are our reliable friends. At the other end of the scale are the sweetness champions: grapes, ripe bananas, persimmons, figs, and cherries. These contain a very high amount of natural sugars, fructose and glucose. When we eat a large bunch of grapes, we're essentially getting a concentrated dose of sugar that's quickly absorbed into the bloodstream. It's not as drastic as soda because fruits contain fiber, but for our furnace, our body's metabolism, it's still very hot fuel. But the true record holders in this category are dried fruits: raisins, dates, dried apricots, prunes. What exactly is a dried fruit? It's simply a fruit with almost all the water removed. And what's left? That's right, concentrated sugar and fiber. Let's take raisins as an example. They're just dried grapes. A small handful of raisins contains as much sugar as a large bunch of fresh grapes. It's incredibly easy to eat that handful without even realizing it, but for our blood sugar levels, it can be a real bomb. Just a couple of dates can have a similar effect on your sugar levels as a piece of candy. This is by no means a call to completely give up bananas or dates. Instead, view them not as an everyday snack, but more like a dessert. Eat half a banana instead of a whole one. Add just 3 or 4 raisins to your oatmeal for sweetness, not a whole handful. By controlling the portion, we get both vitamins and enjoyment without putting our bodies under undue stress. It's best to prioritize seasonal berries and less sweet fruits, and consume the very sweet ones in extremely limited quantities. And finally, our fifth point. This one is a true master of disguise, a product hiding in plain sight on your dairy aisle shelves. We're talking about low-fat or fat-free dairy products with various added ingredients. You've surely seen those brightly colored containers. Yogurts with peach chunks, strawberry-flavored cottage cheese, or desserts proudly proclaiming 0% fat. Sounds incredibly healthy and diet-friendly, doesn't it? The word fat-free seems to work almost like magic on us. We tend to think that if there's no fat, then the product must be good for us, completely safe, especially for our waistlines and blood sugar. But let's take a peek behind the scenes of how these products are made. When natural dairy fat is removed from a milk product, whether it's yogurt or cottage cheese, it loses 2 crucial things. First, it loses its flavor. It becomes bland, empty, and frankly, unappealing. Second, it loses its rich, creamy, and smooth texture. No manufacturer wants to sell a tasteless and unappetizing product. Right. So what do? They start to improve it. And the main tool for enhancing flavor is, of course, sugar. To make the product appealing again, they generously add sugar, fruit syrups, jams, and even starches to thicken it up. As a result, we're left with a paradoxical situation. We buy a yogurt proudly labeled % fat, believing we're making a healthy choice. But in reality, We're consuming a product that, in a single small container, can contain 3, 4, or even 5 teaspoons of sugar. That's almost as much as the sugary sodas we talked about at the very beginning. Fat, by its very nature, helps to slow down the absorption of carbohydrates. By removing it and then adding sugar, manufacturers create a product that rapidly and efficiently spikes your blood glucose levels. This is truly a double whammy. So what's the solution? It's actually quite simple. Choose natural, plain dairy products without any added ingredients. It's far better to buy regular unsweetened yogurt with a normal fat content, say 5%, and then add a few fresh berries or a spoonful of bran yourself. The same goes for cottage cheese. This way, you'll know exactly what you're eating and avoid the trap of hidden sugars. Remember, fat-free is not a synonym for healthy. Often it's quite the opposite. But here's the real game changer in this whole story. The real problem isn't the potato or banana itself. The true enemy, lurking on supermarket shelves, is hidden sugar. We often think we're buying something healthy or diet-friendly, like that sugar-free yogurt or cookies, but what we're actually getting is a carb bomb in disguise. We trust labels that scream healthy or good for you, but we skip reading the ingredients list. And here's the shocking realization. We're essentially sabotaging our own health by trusting marketing over common sense. This realization is a total game changer. Ultimately, our goal isn't to declare war on food, but to learn how to have a healthier relationship with it and make informed choices. It's not about strict prohibitions, but about truly understanding what you're putting on your plate. Simple knowledge empowers you to control your sugar intake far better than the strictest diets ever could. Thank you for watching this video all the way to the end. If you found it helpful and it shed some light on this complex topic, please give us a like and subscribe to our channel. Your support means a lot to us. Now, a question for all of you. What tricky products, disguised as healthy, have you noticed out there? Share your experiences in the comments below, and let's help each other become more aware.